she stayed on track when it come to them grades. Everybody wanted to say how beautiful she was on the outside, but she was a beautiful person in the inside. So this father right here will mostly, on her about her, morals, respect, manners, setting goals in her life, just making sure that she don't look down on nobody, you know. Because a blink of an eye, you can be in that position the same like that person that you're looking down on. So always, respect your elders. Um, if you can help anybody in any kind of way to help them, But going through high school, junior high, I had obstacles. I had obstacles to deal with her because y'all didn't believe me. Now she got off. She got off the track a lot, but um, yeah, that's just part of life, But still, at the same time, as that father that made sure that you want an education, you want your daughter to be something, but be successful in her own way, and to make sure that you put those qualities in her that she can go out here and do for her own. You're gonna have some ups and downs. That's what I tell her. But still, at the same time, you learn from your mistakes and you move on. And you move on. And you put yourself around people, positive people who going places. You know, I always tell her, if you're the smartest one out of 6 of y'all, 7 of y'all, then that's where you need to come. You need to start evaluating everybody that's in your circle because you shouldn't be the smartest one out of that group around you or your group of friends. Not at all. If it is, you got a problem. You got a problem. I wasn't perfect at all, at a younger age, but as I grew, you know, I learned from the mistakes that I made in life. And, and I told myself I bring a daughter in this world, or a son in this world, that I definitely gonna be in their life, from day one. Make sure they had what they had, they weren't gonna go without, you know. I tell every young man when you bring a child in this world, at some point in time, your life don't completely come to a stop. But now that child didn't ask to come here. So by that child didn't ask to come here, or if it did, y'all agree to bring that child in this world, and now it's your responsibility to make sure that child get taken care of, regardless of what the situation is. You get up and go to work for that child. Make sure your son or your daughter have what they're supposed to have in life, so they can, you know, um, take those tools and be a good citizen or make it in life. You know, um, so all that's gone. I mean, God blessed me with her for 25 years. That's His child. You know, I can't question Him. Only thing I can do, ma'am, is just stand and be her voice and just make sure she don't die in vain, man. That's it. Definitely to the utmost, man. Um, like the GoFundMe page, day one, um, I told Tamika, I ain't want no part of that GoFundMe page. I just want just, yeah, I just want justice for my daughter, man. God, gon- God gonna fight my battles for me. He been doing it ever since. I always put my cares in His hands, you know. So he been moving ever since day one, man. Since he came home to the United, put that plane hits the ground, man, on that United States soil. And when I saw, I cried like a baby. But and I saw what happened, and I had to find him, man. Like I'm sitting here at this table right now, but I was at my mom's house. First phone number I dialed over there, the morgue or the funeral home, a Mexican lady, Miss Elizabeth. She couldn't be no more than about 28, maybe 31. You know, she never knew me. I never knew her. I never saw her or nothing, man. But, she said, Miss Robinson, I got your son, your daughter. And she said, I'm going to stick with you today. Want to make sure your daughter get back to you. She kept her word. And I know it wasn't never God doing, you know. I didn't know how much it was, man, to bring her back over here. I didn't have a clue. But I know I'm that father that worked so hard that I always put back for a rainy day. So, and I'm that father that always pay my tithes when I go to church. So, I look at it, God was, setting me up for this, which I didn't see it coming. Which I always tell her, I always put back for a rainy day because you never know when that day gonna come, but you don't want to ask nobody for nothing. Cause sometimes people funny about loaning your money. So, so I made sure I had it when the price was put out there, man, I was able to bring her home, man. Bring her home and always, do her funeral, sit there. And I just thought she'll be burying me, not me burying her, you know. And that lady, Miss Elizabeth, I just got to give my grateful gratitude to her because I would have been a wreck, man, if I couldn't find her, knowing that she was in another country and I couldn't even find her. And then, the video came out. I was at the graveyard. The video came out, NCVB sent me the video. I saw the video, and she was there naked, man. They hitting on her, and I just started crying out there at the funeral home because I was finding a place where I was gonna bury her at, so I can close the grave. And I told them, man, just send it viral, man, because people need to see this. They said it was alcohol poisoning, which I knew it wasn't no alcohol poisoning, man. And then when I got the autopsy, the lady, Miss Elizabeth, told me what the autopsy was before she even got back here, man. And I told her mom, I told her mom and her sister what happened. The video came from NCBB, North Carolina Beach, whatever that platform he got, Jura or something. Right, I guess he sent it to me, so I don't know if it was already on the internet or not. Cause like I say, I don't be on stuff like that. I just know I was at the grave site where I was going, to open close her grave, and went on ahead and paid the money to close her grave, ma'am. And he sent me the video. When I saw it, I told him go ahead and send the video viral. I said send it viral, man, because the whole nation, the whole world need to see that it was not no alcohol poison from what they said, and which deep down in my heart I knew it was, from the get go. So I told him go ahead and send it, even though she was there naked. They were hitting on her, you know, couldn't be there to, to do nothing. And I know they took over there, man. It wasn't nothing but premeditated, envious and jealous of her. You know, they don't know. They didn't change my whole life. They didn't change my whole life, man, to the core. You know, but God, my vengeance. God fight my vengeance for me, man. So, they back over here walking around. Didn't even call, give me they said, Mr. Robinson, we sorry. The parents ain't even try to track me down. And he say, Mr. Robinson, we sorry about your daughter. they still got their daughters and sons. They out here walking around doing video, but that's okay, man. It's all good. But this whole world, this whole nation, God grace and how strong my faith is. Everybody gonna get justice. The clock is ticking. I'm a very patient man, very patient. My faith is in God very strong, but I'm just waiting on Him. I'm just waiting on Him. Like I told you, every day is a struggle. I cry every day, not knowing that I can't hear a voice. You know, only thing I can look at videos, pictures. Uh, it just hurt. And she would have been turning 20. She would have been turning 26 next month. Yeah, January the 9th. She would have been turning 26. Man.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us. I know you've been through so much, and I can't. My condolences to you. I'm praying for you and your family, and we want to tell the story. We're doing this because we want to tell our story. We want to help you get justice. So, just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate all the prayers around this nation, around this world, because that's how I'm standing in my faith with God. That's how I'm standing. His strength and y'all prayers, your loving and y'all caring this, and want justice for Shanquella Robinson.
Well,
that's how I'm standing.
Well, let's talk about Shanquella. The world knows her. We all know her because of that video. It was circulating. It was awful to watch. But we know there's more to her than that awful moment. Who is she to you?
Shanquella Bernarda Robinson. That was my only child, my only daughter that God blessed me with. God gave me that seed. He blessed me with her to come in this world. As a father, for to come in this world, and I was there at the hospital, even though she was a girl, trying to figure out where I can put my middle name, where I can put my name on it at. So that's how the middle name came up with Bernarda, since my name is Bernard. So that I said, well then, okay. I turned a couple of letters around and put Bernarda. And that's how
that's your baby. You had to.
To the utmost. Very hardworking man. I'm old school. I don't be on social media, like Twitter, Facebook, none of that. I'm just the type of person, I get up, thank the Lord for my health and my strength. And I go on and do an honest day, work, living, making sure she had what she had, being a very good provider for her, and the leader of the household. That's all. Make sure her foundation in church at a younger age got Christian in the church. Reading scripture, doing, Easter plays, Christmas plays. Got baptized.
So she had strong faith like you. She had strong faith like you.
Oh yeah, to the utmost. She wasn't. We wouldn't. I'm not perfect, and she wasn't perfect. We weren't born with no silver spoon in our mouth. I come from a father and a mother that was in the household. We had structure, we had discipline, we had chores. We just couldn't do what we want to do and just come in the house anytime we want to come in at the age when we got to 16, 15 or 16, like some of these teenagers doing now. They come in the house when they want to. Nah, my mom and dad didn't play that.
And you raised Shanquella with that structure too.
You couldn't get in. You're not getting in. You're not coming to their door at 12, 11 o'clock, knocking on the door, talking about let you in. No, you're gonna stay wherever you at.
Yes, I know that kind of household well.
Taking her to nursery, picking her up from nursery, taking her to elementary school, dropping her off, picking her up, going to eat lunch with her, bringing all the kids in her classroom cupcakes and ice cream,
Mm.
her smart, her intelligence, making sure that she read 30 minutes a day. You know, like I say, I'm not bragging on my daughter, but as a father, that's how I was raised. So I put them same qualities as a parent raising that child up right, giving her that foundation, that knowledge, you know, that baton of knowing that she can be somebody, but be somebody in her own way, be successful in her own way, being on
Mm.
the A and B honor roll, uh, putting in Chi America at a young age, paying for these things, you know, teaching her the value of a dollar, you know, not to look down on nobody, you know, um, loving and caring. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Respect your elders. You know, you can help anybody kind of way you help them. You don't look down on nobody. Don't be a materialistic person. She had what she had, but at the same time, you better have them grades behind for you to have these things. You
Yeah.
can't make these grades and keep these grades up, you're not gonna get these things. And then I always tell her, you go to school. The school is just like a job. You go to school to make good grades, because one day you ain't gonna be going to school no more. So sooner or later, when you get out, you'll be able to, do what you need to do to get a good, decent job where you can, provide on your own. You don't need a man to provide on, take care of you, because as long as your dad is living, your dad gonna be right there. I'm gonna be right there for you. You know,
Mm.
I'm gonna
And
tell you when your mom is, you know,
that's a
right.
that's a beautiful thing, sir. I mean, you must have been so proud of her.
Yeah, I was very proud of her, sir. Like I say, I went through some obstacle course, making sure she stayed on track, going to the teacher conference and, making sure she got her projects in, making sure she got her homework in when they weren't turned in, when they weren't turned in when they supposed to be turned in. Now, we're not doing this right here. You go
Mm.
to school to learn. You don't go to school to be fashion and all that. It's good and nice that you dress in this kind of way, but still at the same time, you're gonna have action behind your words. My philosophy, I always say what you mean and mean what you say. You know, I'm
Wow.
just, I'm just real. I'm a people person. Making sure John C. Smith. I just drove, like I was telling the other lady. I drove for John C. Smith part time, making sure drove for the cheerleader, transporting the teams around. You know, and I drove for Miss Peggy Lyle. She was the cheerleader coach. And I treat all her girls like they were mine. I made sure the mother and their mothers and fathers know they can sleep good at night while their daughter is up on that campus and we traveling, going back and forth, that their daughter's gonna be safe, coming back and forth from, playing different
Yeah.
teams,
Yeah.
And Shanquella used to come up to the school and all the cheerleaders, different classes, would take her to their dorms and say, Dad, one day I want to go to college. I said, You will? I said, Dad, got you. You gonna be going. I said, you just keep the grades up. And she kept them up. She got into Winston-Salem, did her thing, got a decent job, good jobs, in the airline, and she started doing hair. And she got good at it. And I told her, I said, well, Dad, I can't do both. I said, well, you make a good self a living or doing hair. I said, go for it. But I said, you be successful in your own way. You be a leader. I always taught her to be a leader, not a follower, you know.
Yeah.
You
Sounds like you
know.
raised her so well, and I can hear the pain in your voice from everything
So
you've
it's a
been going
lot.
through. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
unimaginable. Where were you when you first heard the tragic news that she had died?
right here at home, right here, I was sitting in the living room looking at TV. I just came off the road. I'm a local truck driver, I drive at night. And she always would call and say, Dad, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. And, it was on a Wednesday, she said, Dad, you sleep. She came in the house to get something because, she got her own apartment, doing her own thing. She said, Dad, you sleep? I said, yeah, because I got to go down the road in a little bit, She said, call me. And I called her, and she didn't answer. So I said, okay, then. She must be busy doing her braid hair or something. So I guess I'll talk to her later on. And then when that Saturday came, that's when I got the phone call. saying she had passed away down in Mexico, Cabo. So I broke
And at
down,
the
started crying.
mm,
Mom told me, it was alcohol poisoning. I said, nah, I'm not going for that. I ain't going for the alcohol poisoning. I said, God,
you didn't believe it. Why
no,
when they said alcohol poisoning, why did you not believe it?
that's not her. That's not her. That's not her, sir. I mean, that's not her. She might drink a little bit or whatever, how kids do, still trying to find they feeling their way because they're young. She might drink a little bit, but alcohol poisoning, sir, nah, that wasn't her. Nah, I just know that, nah, that ain't her style.
Wow.
She ain't gonna just sit around and just drink herself like that, sir. No, mm-mm. It's not
So,
her.
but you were told that by the people she was on the trip with, right?
Right, which I don't even know them. Never
I was
met
going
her.
to ask you. You,
Never
you,
met
you,
her.
you didn't know,
Nah,
did she talk about them? And did you have any connection to any of these people that she was on the
nah,
trip with?
no connection whatsoever. I don't think I knew that she went to college with them. She went to college with them. They ain't never met them at all. All this was new to me. The names start popping up. Who is this and that? I ain't know none of them.
Mm,
Only thing I knew, she passed, and that following Monday, sitting over at my mom's house like I'm sitting right now at the table,
wow.
dialing
We,
phone numbers over to the embassy suite, trying to get through, seeing where she was over there, you know,
yeah.
sitting over there trying to find her where she was. Like I told you, co-worker.
And
Ask
after you got
God,
that,
ask God, show me where my daughter at. Show me where my daughter. I dialed the phone number over there, Googled it, dialed the phone number, and she was over at Riviera. It's a Riviera funeral home over there, and they had her body. A young lady picked the phone up, name Miss Elizabeth, Mexican lady, little younger lady, young girl. She said, Mr. Robinson, I got your daughter. She said, I'm sorry for her loss. Sorry for your loss. She said, Mr. Robinson, I have a father, and you sound like you, my type, my daddy, sound just like my daddy, caring and loving. She said, I'm going to stick with you until your daughter get back to you to the United States soil. And she said, this is what I want you to do. I need you to fill out the paperwork. And once you fill out the paperwork, we can get all this done. And I'll tell you how much money you need to wire over here to the funeral home to bring her back here. And that's what I did, sir.
when they gave you the next bit of information, when you saw the report that said that it wasn't alcohol poisoning, but that there was actual trauma and that there was actual an actual explanation that seemed to be from some kind of blow, you know, how did you make sense of that?
The funeral home, Brianna at Rosedale Funeral Home, and me and Miss Elizabeth, all three of us worked together. She talking to Brianna at the funeral home, and Brianna talking to me, relating back to me, and us three, you know, getting everything together, the paperwork, because they had to transfer that Spanish over to English. And before she even got back here, I got on the phone. She called me. Elizabeth did, and I asked her, I said, Miss Elizabeth, what happened? I said, she got alcohol poisoning in her system. She said, no, Mr. Robinson. She said, they broke her neck and her spinal cord. And I told her mom, and I just started crying, you know. I said, really?
Yeah.
You got to be joking. She said, no, Mr. Robinson, there wasn't no alcohol in her system. Your daughter died of a broken neck and her spinal cord.
My God, what did you do then? Did you call the investigators? Did you reach out to the police? What did you do when you got that information that it was a neck and spinal cord injury and not alcohol?
No, they gave me the number. They gave me the number down there to Hagar Araris, the investigator. And he said, Mr. Robinson, what you telling me, their story is not adding up. But he said, for you to get it going, Mr. Robinson, you got to start on the United States side. And that's what I did.
Hmm.
That's what I
Now,
did.
are the investigators still talking to you? Or are they giving you updates? Like, where are we now?
I'm gonna leave that part alone. I ain't not even gonna go into that.
Okay. Well, can you? And I don't want you to go into the details if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason. But can you at least let us know? Are you in conversation with the people that you want to be in conversation with? Are you getting answers from people?
I ain't gonna even go into that. I'm just gonna let them do what they gotta do.
Okay. Are you happy with what they're doing?
I'm just like I said, I'm gonna leave exactly what they gotta do. My faith is in
Okay.
God. My faith is in God, man. That
Okay.
was my faith at from day one. I said, God, show
Okay.
me what happened. And he started pulling layers, pulling layers, pulling layers, man. He started pulling layers. Y'all
Mm.
got the story. Everybody got the story, saw the story. And then y'all saw how they did Shanquella. And y'all saw that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And God put that feeling in y'all knowing that it was wrong. And that's why everybody around this world today want justice. That's why everybody praying. Don't even know me. I don't even know them, man. And I appreciate y'all prayers, y'all
Yes, sir.
caring this, and y'all love, for this father right here, because I'm hurt, man. I'm hurt. I'm hurting to the core. For them to do this right here, she had so much
I
going for herself. You know, her life had just started beginning. So proud of her. And they just took this from me. Took this from me.
my
Took
God.
this. Then it got back here, man, and just doing walking around. It just mind boggling, man. Like I say, it's a whole lot of questions ain't being answered, but God gonna bring it all out.
Yeah. Yeah.
God gonna my patience and my faith with Him, sir, gonna bring it all out. You know, she gone. Only thing I can do is fight for her and stand for her like y'all doing right along with me. Um, it's hard, man. It's hard.
I understand,
It's
sir.
hard.
I'm watching you fight. I'm watching you go through these interviews. I'm watching you pray. I'm watching you, do the work on the ground. I see you doing everything that you can to get justice for your daughter, and I'm in awe, sir. I'm so honored to be talking to you about this, and that you spent some time here with us. Um, Before you go, one of the things you've said before is that you thought Shanquella was set up. What did you mean by that?
Envious and jealous of her. I mean, her business, doing hair. I mean, how people like her, man. She was a people person. They knew her dad here in Charlotte. People who always used to tell her, no matter where you go, they know you. They can just look at you, and once you say you're a Robinson, they're gonna say your dad
Mm-hmm.
named Bernard, ain't it? They're gonna say, yeah, oh, you got a good dad. I don't try to bother. I don't bother nobody, man. I treat people like they want to be treated. This dad going to feed the homeless, man.
Mm-hmm.
She go to the shelter when she was little with me, man. A lot of the men used to get together, fix hot dogs and stuff, man. Go out here and feed the homeless. She used to be with me. So I always used to let her know. A blink of an eye, you can be in the same situation they in, but I always never look down on nobody. You know,
That's right. Oof.
Christmas
I know
coming
you
up.
want answers, and I know.
Christmas coming up, man. Her birthday coming up, man. She was gonna be 26, January the 9th. 26. Won't be able to see that, you know.
Yeah.
Can't get no more of them phone calls while I'm going down the road. Dad, you okay? You know, it's hard. This is hard. This is hard. This is hard. I'm just being
I
real.
know.
I'm
No,
just
I
being real.
appreciate
This
your
father right
honesty. I
here is hurt
appreciate your honesty.
to the
I mean,
core.
yeah, and I understand, sir. And I keep thinking about, and I'm a father. I think about what if something like that would happen to one of my daughters, like how I would feel. And I don't know if anything would make me feel better, but I would at least want some answers. Are there any answers that you want that you haven't gotten? For example, I know you ordered a private autopsy, your family did. Have you gotten any answers from that yet?
God gonna give me the answers. It's just me being patient and keeping my faith in His hands and keep praying. And y'all prayers, keep praying around this world, around this nation. We're gonna get all these answers that
Yes, sir.
everybody's just asking. We're gonna get
Yes,
all the
sir. We're gonna
going
get
forward
justice too.
to the
We're gonna get
utmost.
justice for you too. So, what would justice look like to you at the end of the day? If you could, what do you want the outcome to be? What would justice look like?
Whatever justice God got for him, because He fight my vengeance for me. That's gonna be the justice. That's gonna be the
And
justice. Just going forward, the fathers and the mothers who got kids, even though they 25, 27, whatever. It's not about you being in their business. It's about making sure you check who their friends are going forward. But this father
speaking of
right here
friends,
didn't get opportunity. This father didn't get opportunity to check who her friends were because she knew me. She knew what type of dad I was. That's why she probably didn't even bring them around me or let me know who they were. Because
yeah,
I would probably go check them. Who your mom, who your dad is. What your attention is with my daughter. I asked those questions. I asked a lot of questions. I used to tell her, even in school, something you don't know in the classroom, ask. Don't sit there and not know what's going on and you're not familiar with this
mm-hmm,
question or this problem. Ask. I'd rather for you to ask not to ask. You know,
yeah,
that's just part of
yeah.
life. You know,
That's right, sir. I'm gonna give you the last word here. What's your message for those people she went on a trip with? What do you have to say to them as we continue this fight for justice?
I don't think I want to say to them that y'all done put a big hole, empty space in my heart. Going forward, or however long God got me to live on this earth. I struggle every day. I'm standing on everybody's strength around this world, this nation, and my faith with the Lord. But going forward, this Father right here, I'm not perfect, but I serve a God and I pray. And He gonna fight my vengeance for me. And whatever He lay it all out, the consequences is yours. Because
Mm.
God didn't give y'all the right to take a life. Not at all. And think that this father right here was gonna lay down and let her die in vain. It's not happening. I serve a
That's right, sir.
God. I serve a God that got powers like you just don't know.
I can't imagine the pain you're going through. But please know we're standing with you. We love you. We're praying for you, and we're fighting with you as we continue this struggle for justice. Mr. Robinson, I want to thank you for joining us on the Griot.
Thank you all. Y'all have a blessed one. Merry
You too,
Christmas.
sir.
Just keep me in y'all
Yes.
prayers.
Welcome back to the Griot and our special show, which is dedicated to the mystery surrounding the death of Shanquella Robinson. A major issue in the case is the different stories surrounding Shanquella's cause of death. Her travel companions claimed that she had alcohol poisoning. The death certificate and the police reports also contradict each other. So we got to unpack this thing. Joining me now is Dr. Roger Mitchell. He's a forensic pathologist. He's the former chief medical examiner in D.C., and he is the chair of the Department of Pathology at Howard University. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
The death certificate lists atlas luxation along with a severe spinal cord injury. What does that mean?
Well, there are bones in the neck called your vertebrae, and the main bone that connects your neck to your skull, to the base of your skull, is called the atlas. That is the bone that connects, your neck to your skull. And when there's a subluxation or luxation, that means there's a shift in that bone off of where it should be in the neck.
Does that occur from anything other than trauma?
The majority of the times where we see that, it's from trauma. You can get it from a motor vehicle collision where your head is thrown forward, when you have that seatbelt in place. You can get it from, falling off of a moving vehicle or moving a motorcycle. You can get it if you're in a fight and, the blow is to your chin or to your neck or to your head that moves that bone off of the base of the skull. And that bone is critical because what sits in that bone, if I can show this way, is what swivels on the neck. And if that bone is shifted, that spinal cord is within centimeters
Mm.
of the bone, that top bone of the neck, that C1 vertebrae, which is the atlas.
So I guess the next question is, how hard do you have to get hit for that to happen? I mean, you said a car accident, but we're not talking about a minor fender bender here. You said a head injury. This isn't like the kind of injury I might get getting fouled driving to the basket playing basketball. I mean, I'd have to get hit or kicked pretty hard. We're talking about like professional boxer level hits. We're talking like major car accident. Am I overstating or is that accurate?
I mean, there's several things. You're not overstating. This is a severe injury. No matter how you look at it, it's a severe injury. If you're braced for it and you tighten your body, you might be able to take a blow, right, and that injury not happen. But if you're not, right, if you're not ready for it or you're not protecting yourself,
for example, if you're drunk, and you're not able to sort of control your body or brace yourself the way you normally would.
Absolutely. Or you get caught off guard. Back where I'm from, if you got snuck, right? You if you're not ready for it and you take all of that blow, whether it's a fist or a kick, even if you're ready for a kick and you're not a professional athlete, a kick to the head can create a lot of injury to your head and neck.
Well, in the case of Shanquella, the death certificate says the victim died within 15 minutes of her injury. When it comes to these kind of spinal cord injuries, when it comes to atlas luxation, is that a normal timeline where you get hit and within 15 minutes you pass away?
It can be sooner, depending on the level of injury to that spinal cord. Remember, your breathing center's at your brainstem. Your brainstem ends right where the spinal cord begins, and the spinal cord begins right at that atlas, which is C1, which is the cervical vertebrae number 1, which is at the top of your neck. So it can happen immediately, and it can take hours, depending on the level of injury to the spinal cord, because the spinal cord will swell. And so as the spinal cord swells, it can take, hours. And then obviously if you get delivered to a hospital and a hospital gives you treatment to decrease that swelling, then that's how your life is saved. Or if you're,
so that means you got to get into an ambulance, right? I mean,
you got to get to an ambulance. You have to get to an ambulance. And 15 minutes, it's not surprising that it would take 15 minutes. And that's
we don't know how. Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, obviously, the sooner you get into an ambulance, the better. But according to some of these allegations, there was just no urgency at all. And so, if you're not even getting an ambulance called, or if you don't get into the ambulance until an extended amount of time, you don't have much of a fighting chance here.
No, you don't. I mean, especially if you have the spinal cord swelling, you really need to get into a place where you're stabilizing the spine. You need to get, medications to decrease that swelling. All of that has to happen when you have this type of injury.
Now, another piece of this story is that her travel companions, we don't even want to call them friends at this point, they said she had alcohol poisoning. That's what they reported to her family. That's what they told people. She had alcohol poisoning. Is there a sort of norm here when it comes to getting a toxicology report? Do they normally, test the body to see, if there's alcohol, if there's drugs, if there's other things in the body? Is that a normal thing that would be done by doctors, or does the family have to make a special request?
Well, it's hard for me to speak about what Mexico does in forensic pathology and the medical examiner norms of Mexico, right? The fact that they're able to develop a cause of death like atlas luxation tells me that they're capable of getting a toxicology. And I don't know whether or not they have access to toxicology. But in the United States, absolutely, anyone who is in any type of altercation, even if we got a history that they had alcohol poisoning, that would be the first thing that you would do. Absolutely, run a toxicology report to see what the levels, and then you would also do a full, complete autopsy. It's hard to imagine that Shanquella would not have had injuries that were visible at autopsy. Bruises of her face, neck,
I was going to
head.
say, you're talking about bruising, right? Because, I mean, obviously it's possible that it was just that neck area, just that spinal cord injury. But if she suffered a beating, there probably would be some other indicator other than just the kind of swelling that would happen at the spinal cord. I mean, that's sort of uncommon too.
No, absolutely. She's going to have the injuries that go along with why her head was functionally disconnected from her neck.
Jesus.
That's what the luxation is that there's a shift from the head and the normal connection between your head and your neck. And so there's a degree of force that's delivered to the head and neck that leads to that. That degree of force is going to leave a mark on her. And that would be seen at autopsy as well.
Right. There's no way a professional medical examiner could look at her body and think, oh, this is somebody who drank too much and just passed out and died.
I would like to think no. I would like to think that, if you're a professional physician, medical examiner, you're going to perform this exam, you're going to see marks and bruises that are consistent with an altercation. And that's what even prompt you to do a deeper dissection of the neck to find the luxation. I mean, that is not something that you see on the surface of a neck. You have to dig, you have to perform an autopsy a little deeper to be able to see that shift from the bone to the base of the neck.
Wow. Well, thank you, doctor, for breaking this down for us. There's a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, and certainly a lot of speculation, and we want to do our best to bring facts, and your analysis here has absolutely helped us do that. Welcome back to The Griot and our special hour on the Shanquella Robinson case. What started as a birthday celebration ended in tragedy as news broke of 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson's death. There are conflicting reports, changing stories, and just so much mystery about what happened in the Cabo Villa on October 29th. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Shanquella went on a trip with 6 of her so-called friends from college. They were going there because they wanted to celebrate somebody's birthday, and there are videos circulating from that Friday night. They're seen drinking, they're playing cards, and there's a video of Shanquella asleep on a hammock. There's a video of her walking through the villa looking for her friends and jokingly telling them, "Get your swimsuits on." We know that she called her mother that Friday night. She said there was a chef in the villa that was making them tacos. It sounds like the makings of a great trip, but then we know something changed. In the now viral video, we see one of the Cabo Six viciously attacking Shanquella while others stood by watching it and filming it. A man is heard telling her to fight back. You can see the hands of another woman recording a video as well. At least 2 other people were in that room, and they apparently just stood by and watched. It's heartbreaking to know that no one came to Shanquella's defense. Her so-called friends didn't even give her a chance to get dressed before they started recording her. It's one thing to record the fight, which is awful enough, but they also posted it online. They posted a video of Shanquella being attacked as she was naked, laying there. Welcome back to The Griot with Marc Lamont Hill. This is a special hour on the life and death of Shanquella Robinson. An arrest warrant has been issued in the case, but no arrests have been made so far. We're now going to take a look at the legal issues that could come into play. Joining me now is Yolanda Trotman. She's a criminal defense attorney and former Mecklenburg County judge. Attorney Trotman, thank you for joining us here on The Griot.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Now, Mexico has announced an arrest warrant. They did so last month, but as of yet, no arrest has been made. Why is this taking so long?
Well, I can tell you that the extradition process is very complicated. So It has to start, obviously, with getting it to the Department of State. The Department of State has to go through its process of certifying the validity of the request, whether or not it's an extraditable offense. And then that's where it becomes particularly complicated, because when there's a fugitive issue, that fugitive has to be arrested where in the jurisdiction of where they are. In other words, a warrant has to be issued by the U.S. attorney in the district where that fugitive is believed to be at that time. So, for example, if the belief was that fugitive was in Charlotte, it has to go from the Department of State to Department of Justice to the U.S. Attorney's Office to a warrant being issued to then getting that person served. But if they leave that jurisdiction, then you have to find out where that person is to make sure that they get served in the jurisdiction where they are at the time that warrant is issued.
Does any jurisdiction have a particular disposition that's more relaxed, more passive, more aggressive, more fervent, less fervent? You know what I mean? Will the region determine how much justice we get or how aggressively we'll be able to pursue it?
Not for this part of the process at all, because it's all determined by federal law. So I think the complicated part is just trying to figure out where this person is. And then once that process is started and that person is then brought into custody, the process is the same across the board. They'll go before a magistrate. There'll be obviously the U.S. attorney that's assigned to the case is not going to ask for bond. Then there's when it becomes particularly complicated if that person then files a motion for writ of habeas corpus and a whole host of other things that could happen that could delay that process once that warrant is actually served and that person is brought into custody.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that part of this process is determining who the person is, because there's a lot of speculation on the internet. There's a lot of guessing about who did what and who getting locked up and who the warrant is for. We don't have that information yet. We will have it sooner than later, I expect. But until then, it's very good that we're not speculating and we're waiting on the process. And speaking of the process, attorney, the U.S. has a process when people violate the law. But this is a crime that allegedly happened on foreign soil. And even though these are U.S. citizens, it's unclear to many of us who aren't legal experts like you what the United States can do legally when a U.S. citizen commits a crime on foreign soil.
So the very short answer is where the criminal conduct occurs is where the investigation is and where the prosecution lies. So because the alleged crime is alleged to have happened in Mexico, you have to go through a Mexican the investigation through the Mexican government, and then of course that process comes here, and then we go through the extradition process. I think the question that a lot of people had, at least initially, is what can we do in terms of any prosecution here in the United States, and it becomes a little bit more complicated. You have to understand that the Mexican government is not a common law government, not based on common law like the U.S. is. It's Napoleonic. So it's based on the Napoleonic system, which presumes guilt versus assuming innocence, which we have here in the U.S. And you also have a system that does not have a trial by jury. You have systems that are where you have 32 states they all have their own governors. They all are judge driven. So the case will ultimately, for example, be tried in front of a judge and not a jury. There's not likely
how does
to
that
be
No, I'm sorry. Continue. You said there's not going to be pretrial.
It would not likely be a pretrial release option for this person once that person is then brought back to Mexico. And the reason why that is that based on the nature of the offense, which is femicide, it's not likely that that person is going to be able to obtain any pretrial release. Like in the U.S., you have an opportunity to have bond, you have an opportunity to post bond. Obviously, in certain situations, the court can deny bond in its entirety, and you have to sit awaiting trial. In Mexico, it's very different. There's not going to be an option for that person to be able to bond out, so they sit and they wait. And they wait until that process. And there's layers to the process procedurally in terms of their criminal procedure, but that is very, very different. And I think that's important to know, because I say to people often, it's like how we view justice and how quickly this happens is not going to be the same way that the process actually would take place over in Mexico versus what we're accustomed to here in the U.S.
If there's a sense that there's no pretrial bail, right? And that's just how it works. If there's a presumption of guilt rather than a presumption of innocence, if there's a general sense, potentially, that rather than a jury of your peers that will give you a fair trial, the judge that oversees this may not give you a fair trial? Might there be resistance from the U.S. government to extradite? Might they say, we're not going to send a citizen to Mexico so where they'll get an unfair trial? I'm thinking specifically now in the aftermath of the Brittany Griner debacle. You know, there might be a public sentiment that we don't want to trust the justice system of another nation. What do you think of that?
You know, that's interesting because I don't necessarily think, I don't necessarily think that would be the sense of this particular situation. One, given the serious nature of the actual charge of femicide. Two, generally, the U.S. is not going to extradite unless there is a belief that that person is going to be tortured or there is likely going to be the death penalty or something along those lines. Because you have to understand that the buck ultimately stops with the Secretary of State. So even once that process is done, they go through the extradition process, the hearing, appeals, if there are, all of that, it ultimately lies with the Secretary of State. So I think given the serious nature of the charge, I would be surprised. Now, while there may be petitions not to extradite, I would be very surprised, especially now that this has gotten the attention that it has, that person would not ultimately be extradited. And
does Mexico have enough to get a conviction here? Based on what you know of the available evidence, based on how you understand the process, do you think a conviction can be attained in Mexico?
That's really tough because there's so much we don't know. I think we are hearing from sources. We're hearing from people who are not necessarily directly related to the investigation. So I'll be very hesitant to offer any type of an opinion because we don't really know the full extent of what the investigation has been, whether or not, for example, there's going to be a private autopsy or things of that nature.
No, fair enough. But what we do know is that there's a video. Will the video play a significant role in a trial? Again, some places video matters. Some places they say it's inadmissible. Some, I understand how the U.S. system works, but do you have a sense that the video will play a role in the trial?
I do think the problem that they may have is a similar problem that you may have, that you would certainly have in a U.S. court, which is going to be authenticating it. Where did it come from? Where's the original? How can you authenticate the actual people there? When was it taken? I think regardless of what our rules of evidence are, I think that is going to pose a problem, and quite possibly the extent and the nature and whether or not that investigation by authorities was as thorough as it needed to be or should have been.
If it is substantiated that the person committed the crime of femicide, how likely is it that we'll see charges from the other friends for something like conspiracy or accessory after the fact or obstruction? I mean, is that stuff possible?
No, I wouldn't see that based on anything that necessarily happened in Mexico because, for example, there's no accessory after the fact option in Mexico. What I do think is important is what happened before they left and what happened once they actually came back to the U.S. So if there was any lying to the police or having knowledge of the crime or trying to hide a person, all of those things are potentially obstruction on a federal level based on the FBI investigation, but on a state level, all of those things could be felonious in almost any state. If you're talking about accessory, that could get the others charged.
Attorney Trotman, I want to thank you for your legal insight. We're going to keep coming back to you because you know a whole lot about this thing. Still ahead on the Griot, who is responsible for Shanquella's death and what is needed to bring her justice? We'll take a look at why social media is being credited with putting the case in the national spotlight. Welcome back to our special hour on the death of Shanquella Robinson. When it comes to Shanquella's case, there's no denying the fact that Black Twitter catapulted her story into the national spotlight. Prior to the video of the horrific beating going viral, Mexico ruled her death an accident. Through sharing that video and Black Twitter weighing in on that video, Mexico reversed its course and it opened an investigation. So this leads to the question, how important is social media to telling our stories? Joining me to help answer that question is Dr. Meredith Clark. She's an associate professor of journalism at Northeastern University. Professor, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
How did you hear about this case?
I heard about this case on TikTok, I believe, first, and then saw more of it being discussed on Twitter. Fortunately, I was able to avoid the video for a couple of days, but then one day it did come down my timeline and I have the autoplay feature on, so I did see it in live action.
Yeah, I encountered the video. A colleague sent me a text telling me to look for it. I did a search on Twitter, and it popped up, but the video popped up as well. So I unfortunately, I was kind of accosted by the violence of the video before I was prepared for it, which is part of my question to you. To what extent is the spectacle of violence part of what makes this stuff go viral? Like if there's no violence in the video and it's just the story of what happened, does it still go viral? Like what makes stuff go viral?
Well, there are a number of things. One of the things that we've seen and that we've been conditioned to see, I'd say since about 2013, 2014, is that folks want to see proof of these allegations of violence against Black people. For a period of time, we were talking about allegations of police violence against Black people, and now we're getting into intimate partner violence and violence against women, violence against children. There's something very specific about American culture where we think that seeing is believing. And now it's not just enough for us to see photographs. We want to see live action depictions. People want to see the videos if they're available.
To what extent is that about us needing proof? And to what extent is that about a skepticism about Black experience, Black truth-telling, Black witness? I mean, do we need that same kind of proof when white people get harmed or are missing or get killed or other things like that?
Well, no. I mean, we know that there is a phenomenon called missing white woman syndrome, missing white girl syndrome, where depending on whether you are young, white, deemed conventionally attractive, where you're from in the world, how much education you have, how much your family has, and how much they're able to connect with media and get an emotional plea for your story, then you sort of have a built-in system of belief where your story gets the amplification that it needs for people to find out what happened to you and to advocate for justice on your behalf. Unfortunately, Black folks don't have that same sort of connection with media. And this is not a new phenomenon. We can go back to the Kerner Commission report and its findings about how news media was misrepresenting Black people way back in the 60s and 70s, and of course, much earlier than that. But that sort of exclusion has been tracking with us for decades now. So we have a different burden of proof.
How has Black Twitter changed that dynamic, that power dynamic, that social arrangement? You know, are we able to supplement the gaps that mainstream media has always kind of had when it comes to our stories? Are we able to push back? You know, some people have argued that, you know, Black Twitter in particular, but social media more broadly, as you said, TikTok was your first introduction to the Shanquella Robinson case, that it fills those gaps and it allows us to do it on our own terms. Other people say it's not enough. We're romanticizing this thing. We still need mainstream attention. Where do you fall on that?
Somewhere in the middle. I believe that Black Twitter does complement the mainstream reporting and often fills in some of the gaps that we see, definitely coloring in the experiences that people who are far removed from these communities have and tend to report on these things or try to report on these things objectively, which we know is a farce. But Black Twitter does something that mainstream news media cannot do, and it provides intimate perspectives from different Black people from different walks of life and different regions of the country and world to provide a more nuanced picture of what each of these particular cases means. So Shanquella's case is not just about a woman dying under mysterious circumstances in Mexico. It's about the bond of friendship. It's about a reputation. It's about the international relations and how Black bodies are devalued in other countries as well. So we are able to provide those perspectives that mainstream media just does not have.
What's the danger of this stuff being distributed sort of unregulated, and increasingly unregulated, if not altogether deregulated, on places like Twitter? In other words, on mainstream media, they'll blur out the violence. They'll say trigger warning. You know, we'll have, you know, it'll come on once, twice, 3 times a day, depending on the network. But on Twitter, we see reel after reel of Black violence, people harming Black bodies, people destroying Black bodies, people harming Black people, people killing us, people harassing us harming each other. Is there any danger in one, creating like a deep kind of trauma in these spaces from what we see, and two, sort of objectifying our bodies so much that we become inured to it and people don't, it just becomes ordinary because we see it so much?
Absolutely. You know, I can't speak to the specific psychology of the matter, but I will say that we know there's something called cultivation bias, where people are exposed to different messages over and over and over again, and they begin to see the world in a particular way. My fear would be that people see Black people, Black bodies being harmed, and it becomes habituated. They get used to it. They see that perhaps that's just the way things are. And that's certainly not a condition that we want. We already know that in the medical field and other helping professions, there are beliefs that Black people don't feel pain in the same way. And so we certainly wouldn't want those kind of beliefs to permeate society any further than they already have.
And that is indeed, the danger, but it's also, the site of possibility, because at the same time that we don't want to become habituated to all these images, we also need these images to remind people that we're catching hell out here, and this is the challenge that Ida B. Wells had, this challenge that lots of people have had when they've tried to spotlight state violence against us, when they try to spotlight citizen violence against us, is to say, how do we keep a balance between the harm that's being done and keeping a spotlight on it, and not making sure that we're not further harming ourselves by spotlighting this. I mean, it's a tough balance, and I think people like you give us the insight that we need to make sense of it. You give us the kind of analysis that's necessary to keep a kind of healthy balance. And so we're grateful for you, Dr. Meredith Clark. Thank you for joining us on the show, and thank you for your work.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to The Griot and our special hour dedicated to the Shanquella Robinson story. We've talked so much about her case, but I don't want us to forget there's an actual person, a human being attached to that video and attached to this case. I want to take time to remember who Shanquella Robinson was.
I love this painting, the kindness, the loving person that she was. That's all I got is our memories and this photo, my child.
She was just a very, outgoing person. I mean, she loved people, just loved the friends that she was around.
She was a very humble spirit, very sweet girl.
That child was amongst friends, and she should have been able to feel comfortable and feel safe. This shouldn't have happened.
She was just excited about going on her trip, and she sat on my chair. We just talked about a lot of personal stuff. Like, we just clicked like she was like my little sister.
Losing a loved one in the heinous way in which has happened to Shanquella, there probably will never be peace for them. But there cannot just be an unopened situation. It has to be closed with truth, and it has to be that there is accountability for those who are responsible for her death.
We didn't come to sit quiet. We didn't come to be still, but we came for justice tonight.
Everybody being arrested and doing time in Mexico. Everybody extradited over there and doing their time there. That'll be justice for us as of now.
I can't even be a grandfather. I can't even walk her down the aisle, man. The only thing I can do is cherish the moment that we had, the 25 years while she was here on this earth.
All right, family, we have reached the end of the show, but before I let y'all go, I want to remind you all to keep fighting. We all watched that video of Shanquella Robinson being brutalized, and we were all outraged. We were all angry. We were all hurt. Some of us imagine what our own children or sisters or loved ones would be like if they were in that situation. And we raised our voices. And by raising our voices, we drew attention to something that otherwise would have been ignored. And because of that, Shanquella Robinson and her family are just a little bit closer to getting some modicum of justice, although no real justice can ever exist because her life will never be returned to her loved ones. But the fight isn't over. You see, if we don't apply more pressure, there won't be more justice. If we don't put more spotlight on the people who harmed Shanquella, there'll be no more investigations into what happened. We have to keep fighting. We have to keep digging. And we can't let our fight stop at the level of Shanquella Robinson. Every single day, people are harmed, especially Black girls, especially Black women. And we have to keep the spotlight on them. We can never take for granted that their lives will matter just because they should, because they never have. We've always had to put the spotlight on them. We've always had to amplify their pain. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to do it for each other. And not just when they're our babies. Because any one of those people could be our babies. So keep the pressure on for Shanquella Robinson and keep telling the truth and calling for justice for every single one of ours. It's the only way it's going to happen.